Join me in today's video where I unbox and review this Class 90 locomotive by Graham Farish in the stunning Intercity Swallow livery. Hello there, and welcome back to the railway. So without wasting any time, let's just get straight into this unboxing. So first of all, I'll show you the end of the box and the code. So this is 90006 High Sheriff in the Intercity Swallow livery. So just removing the outer sleeve, as all Graham Farish locomotives have. You'll then find once again the standard Graham Farish plastic packaging. And having a look at the paperwork with the model, so we have a Bachmann Collectors Club and Warranty Service sheet. So you can fill those in to either sign up to the Collectors Club or request a warranty for your locomotive. Here we have the instruction manual, which is a very, very detailed instruction manual when compared to some of Graham Farish's other models. Cough, cough, the Class 42. So it shows you where all of the accessories need to be fitted with very high detailed images, and I will be making one of these modifications to my model, and that will be removing the coupling and adding the valance insert piece to the front of the model. So I have one end with the coupling and one end detailed. So now just opening up the booklet, showing us some more of the accessories and features at the top there with the pantograph that can be modelled in the open or closed position. Just bear in mind, if you do have it in the open position, keep an eye out for interference with any bridges or catenary that you might have on your layout. It also gives you advice on lubrication of the model, as well as how to access the DCC socket for DCC decoder fitting, which seems a lot more complicated than other models, but it's nice to see that they show you the detail where all of the screws are to actually remove them. It also shows you the different decoder functions, as well as the directional lighting switches that can be used for DC or analog use. It is a shame though that this model has no way of using the internal cab lights on DC. So now just having a look at the final page of the instruction manual, and it is mostly just information about the warranty. So I'll put this to one side, and now we'll have a closer look at the accessories that come with this model. So just removing the top part of the plastic case gives you easy access then to take out the plastic insert on the inside of the plastic case. So simply just push it out from the one side, and you'll then get access to the accessories bag as well as the locomotive as well. So we'll take the accessories out first and have a quick look at those. So it's just held in there with a little bit of sellotape. It was very sticky sellotape, so as you'll see here, it took me a little bit of time trying to prise it away from the plastic insert, but nevertheless we got it away. So let's have a look at these. So we have separate vacuum pipes, the valance that I will be fitting, as well as I think we've got some couplings in there as well, being the standard hook couplings, and I think there are a couple of Buckeye couplings in there as well. So that would then work with different Class 90 models that you would run with different types of rolling stock. So I just put the accessories bag back where it was, just to keep it safe while I carry on taking the model out of its packaging. So just removing the sleeve from the loco, just placing it to one side, and let's have a look at the model. So it is a very nicely high detailed model, lovely livery application, and as I said, at this end I will be removing the coupling to fit the valance, but I'll do that later. This model doesn't come with any etched nameplates to replace the printed ones, so that's a little bit of a downside if you prefer the etched nameplates, but I'm sure you can get those elsewhere if you really wanted to. So now let's have a little bit more of a close-up look at the model. So you can see the livery application is very good. There's a couple of instances where I think it could be a little bit better, and I'll show you some close-up pictures later. So yeah, but very nice detail on the handrails, nicely picked out in, I think it's just part of the moulding, but nicely picked out in some silver paint. It would be nicer again though if it was separate wire pieces that they'd put in. So now just turning the model upside down to have a look at the underside, so you can see there's nice underframe detailing. The couplings are nicely sprung and return to their centralised positions very nicely. All of the gearing as well is all covered up, so you don't have to worry as much about dust or hairs getting into the gearing system, so that's a bonus for the maintenance of your model, although it will be harder then to clean them and add oil to them. So the numbers and lettering on the side of the model are all very crisp and well refined. Just having another look here at the range of movement on the coupling, and as you can see it has very wide turning angle, so you can run this very easily on tight radius tracks. Just trying to show you some of the cab detailing, although it's a little bit difficult, so you'll be some pictures on the screen later on. But now let's have a look at the history of the Class 90 locomotives. The British Rail Class 90 locomotive was built for mixed traffic duties, having a top speed of 110 miles per hour or 177 kilometres per hour. For some units, however, this was reduced to 75 miles an hour. A total of 50 of these locomotives were produced between the years of 1987 and 1990. The Class 90 was a modern derivative of the Class 87, replacing the ageing electric loco fleet. Originally designated as the 87-2, it was later re-designated as a Class 90 due to its new and improved body shell for increased aerodynamics and modern sleek styling. The Class 90s were removed from regular passenger services in the 2000s and 2010s. You can still see, however, some of the Class 90s in action on freight services, as well as the occasional rail tours. The Class 90 locomotive has been produced in several different liveries for the Engage market. This includes the Intercity Swallow livery that I have showing you today, Rail Freight Triple Grey livery, Rail Express systems used on the postal service, Freightliner Orange and Freightliner Green liveries, as well as the Virgin Trains Red and Black livery. There are, however, several missing liveries for the Class 90, including the GNER Blue and Red, the EWS Yellow and Maroon, as well as the DB Cargo Red. So carrying on with the review now, finding out how much this model weighs, and it is 67 grams. That is quite light when compared to some other Engage models, but it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference with its pulling power. The Graham Farish Class 90 locomotive that was released in 2022 has a coreless dual flywheel motor driving both of the bogies with all-wheel drive and all-wheel pickup, with metal bearings on each axle as well to help with smooth running. For those of you wishing to use the model on DCC, it has a 18-pin DCC socket hidden inside the model, and there are also sound-fitted versions available. The RRP for these models are quite high, with it being at £174.95 for this model that I'm showing you today, although some of the Class 90s RRP is £194.95, which is again incredibly high. If you search around though with different offers, you might be able to get one for as low as £110. So now I'll just show you through some of the fine details that this model has, including the pantograph, which as you can see here can be posed in the open position as well. Again, just being mindful of your tunnel mouths and bridges. This model also has a small bit of cab interior detailing, as you can see through the front windscreens here, and there are also two seats on either side of the cab, as well as a very clear view through. So if you wanted to, you could maybe try and put some figurines in there to try and make it look a bit more realistic. Here you get a good view of the underframe of the model, and you can see some of the pipework has also been finely picked out. I'll just give you a quick 360-degree view of the model, so you can see the paint finish is consistent across the whole model with a lovely kind of satin sheen to it, not like a matte finish like Dapol seems to do with a lot of their models, and doesn't look very realistic. Whereas this is a nice balance of it not being too glossy, but also not being too much of a matte finish to make it look plasticky. The livery application to this model is very good, and the red stripe running across the side of the model is very crisp and has very sharp defined edges to it, which is great to see. The bogies of this model also have some of its springs picked out in paint. This adds a nice bit of detail and contrasts really well against the black frames. Something that I think would have made the finish to this model though even better would have been to have a much more fine and crisp edge to the black paint on the top of the locomotive, as you can see here, as there is quite a bit of, I would say, bleed over onto the white, and it stands out quite a lot when you notice it. We've seen this done much better on different locomotives, and you can also see here on the red section of paintwork of how fine and straight this line is, and in contrast to the black line above, it seems such a jagged edge. And something that would have improved the detailing of this model would have been to have had separately fitted handrails, and I think for the price that this model's RRP is at, it would have been nice to see separately fitted wire being used instead. As well as this, there does seem to be quite a substantial gap between some of the headlights on this locomotive. Another thing that would have improved the detailing of this model would have been the pre-fitting of one end of the locomotive's detailing pack. Now, I've seen this with other manufacturers such as Revolution Trains with its Class 66 and Dapol with its Class 68 locomotives, and they have one end of the locomotive that they add all the detail to. And I just think it would be nice if Graham Farish did this with their models, having it adjustable so that you can change whether the model is detailed at one end or not detailed at one end to the user's preference. But it would be nicer to have some of the more fiddly parts pre-fitted. So now that this front valance is fitted, I will get on with the performance and running part of this review. Okay, so with the locomotive now on the tracks, let's just give it a move in both directions and make sure it's working properly. So turning up the power, and that's moved off nice and smoothly in the left direction. Let's try it the other way. And it's moving just as smoothly in the other direction as well. So let's just run it past now at 50% speed. I'll just move it off camera so you can get a nice view of it. So turning up to 50% speed and turning the power on. Okay, and now back in the other direction. Okay, now I'll turn it up to full power and we'll see how fast it goes going left first. And going back across to the right. So judging by that, I would say this model is geared to run a slightly slower speed, which for a high-speed model I would have expected it maybe to have been geared to run a bit faster than it is, but it does mean then that it is able to move at very slow speeds like you're seeing now. So let's just see now how well it can start off from a crawl. So I'll turn the power up as slow as I can and we'll try and see when the model starts moving. Oh, there we go. So that's very, very quickly that it's started moving. And you can see as well how smooth it is. That it's not juddering along. It's very consistent, especially even with its acceleration. I'm gradually turning up the power as I go. So you can see there it does start to stutter a little, well not stutter, but it's not as smooth as it starts accelerating past there, but it seems to be fine now. It might just need some more running in. So I'll try it in the other direction as well. So once again, starting it off incredibly slow and then gradually increasing the speed. Yeah, that's very smooth. Okay, so the next part we'll just check how it goes over point work. So I'll keep it going across through here and it will then cross over onto the inside track where we will then see how it handles going across all of the points heading towards the depot. So with those points now changed, let's move the locomotive back if it wants to move. There we go. So let's see how it goes very slowly over all of these points. So I'll leave it the speed about there. Now this has been very harsh to the model. It would probably never run at this speed going across this many points on the main line. But if it can survive doing this, then it can survive most of my layout. Okay, that's made it across perfectly fine. So now I'll change the direction and try it again in the other way. Get a good view there of the front directional lights. Yeah, so if it's able to go across all of these points as it has already in the one direction, I don't see it having any problems with any points on the layout unless there is connectivity problems, but that'll be track work, not the model. Okay, and I'm just try and keep it going under the bridge so you can then see the rear directional lights. There we go. Very faint rear red glow, but then again, you're not going to see it that much with array of coaches in the way. So yeah, that's running perfectly fine. We'll now get that running around the layout with some new Mark III coaches that I have had arrive recently. I'll have it going round the test loop as well, so that's going from, it will start off on the inside track. It will use this crossover here, if I just take the camera out of the camera mount. So it will use these crossovers here, and it will use these two crossovers here. So it will run from the inside track here to the most outside track. That's the most amount of points one of my trains can ever use in one run. So it will go through this crossing, and then at this end of the layout, it will then go through this point here and through these crossings here. So that's kind of what I use as if it can make it through that route, then it can make it through anything else on the layout. So I'll get that running round and bring the video to a close. Okay, so I've got the Class 90 coupled up to a set of Mark III coaches. There's 6 of them in total, as well as a DVT at the other end. So another thing I'm going to do with this model while testing it round is also make sure it runs well pushing these coaches in reverse, just so that if I want to have it running in reverse with the DVT at the front, just so I know that then it works perfectly fine with that way. So let's get it moving around the layout. I'm going to leave it about 50% speed just to have it running round. So you can see it's managed those crossings over there perfectly fine, although the coaches haven't, so I'll just pause it there. Okay, let's try that again. So recoupled up those coaches, just had to put it onto the straight section of track. Put it back at 50% speed. Flick that point back open and just follow it around the layout. So it is going slightly uphill here, that's why it's slowed down a little bit. We'll just see how it manages this next crossing section here. So that's managed that without a problem, and it's gone through that point as well without a problem. So now that I know it does those routes perfectly fine, I've just set the points all back to normal, just so I don't have any problems with the coaches derailing again, because I've had quite a few of that now. Most of it's caused by the DVT at the end, so I need to investigate why it's doing that. But let's not forget, today's video is reviewing the locomotive, not these coaches. So this locomotive has done really well. I would say it's a really good performer. I've been running it for a couple of weeks now before this review video. Very consistent, very reliable. So now just move on to the scores that I've awarded this model for each of the different categories. So as you saw earlier with the crawl that this locomotive did, that was very impressive, being able to move off such a low power on the controller, and it was very smooth while doing so. So for the crawl, I have given it a 9 out of 10. For its smoothness, that goes across all different ranges of speed. I've given it an 8. This was because one of the speeds, it did seem to be a little bit more stuttery compared to when it was at low speeds versus high speeds. So I have knocked that down just to an 8. The finish, I've given it an 8 as well. Again, this was just because of the edges on parts of the paintwork not being as crisp as it was on other parts of the model. For the detailing, I've given it a 7. I've knocked this down slightly more than the finish with the, I think having the separately fitted handrails would have made a nice difference as a more premium feel to the model for the price that the RRP is at. As well as it would be better if it had detailed ends that you could fit to the model. Okay, and for another section that I have added on is accessibility. This is a new section of scoring I'm doing for models from this one onwards. I will possibly be adding them for the locos I've already done as well, but not necessarily right now. So what does the accessibility score mean? This is just to do with basically the instructions that they give you in the box with the model, as well as how easy it is to maintain. So for models like this with a really good instruction set and shows you how to keep it maintained, that'll get a higher score. So for this one, I've given it an 8 out of 10, due to the instructions being very clear, much clearer in fact than some other older tooled models. But it's not then gone, say, for a 9 or a 10, as I think there could have been ways made to make the accessibility easier for, say, the removal of certain parts of the model before maintenance. Okay, so overall that gives this model a score of 40 out of 50, or in other words 80%, which I think is a really good score for this model. So just having it running in reverse now, as you can see, and it's had no problems pushing these coaches, apart from the DVT being a nightmare. So I'm going to leave it there for today. So if you've enjoyed this review and unboxing, please don't forget to indeed like the video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget, subscribing is free. If you want to be notified when one of my videos goes live, there's a little notification icon that you can click just next to the subscribe button. So yeah, thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.